All churches seek to experience the promise of Jesus, that those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit. Nowhere is this more important than in helping increasing numbers of people to experience God through worship. At the heart of why any church exists is to glorify God and to share God as revealed in Jesus Christ. Thus, worship is at the center of the congregation's life. The church, of course, is more than worship, but without vital worship attendance, it is unlikely that members are growing and new disciples are being brought to faith. Worship attendance is also the one factor where improvement tends to help every other aspect of the church's ministry. There is another reason for focusing on worship attendance. In recent years, it has become harder for churches to increase their worship attendance. After relatively strong attendance in the 1990s and a rise in attendance for 5 Sundays after the tragedy of September 11, 2001, attendance has been more likely to decrease instead of increase for most U.S. churches since 2002. Churches that grow connect people with God, and compelling and inspiring worship is a primary means of connection. But there's not one right way to worship. When we look at growing churches, sometimes we think that if we simply copy their worship practices, we will grow also. We can certainly learn from every church that is reaching people for Christ, but no one way of worshiping is right for all churches. What is right for your church depends on a number of factors. For example, some think that successful new church starts feature a certain worship style. This is not necessarily the case. Growing new churches do a good job of developing worship that connects with the needs of those they are seeking to reach. While the worship may be different at various new church starts, the worship tends to be relevant to their particular context. This does not mean just doing what you have always done because it is more comfortable. It means doing what fits your mission and context today. 3 things need constant attention for worship to remain inviting. The first is thinking outside in rather than inside out. Often churches practice inside out thinking. They begin with, "This is who we are and what we do," and then seek to promote the church to any who want what we have to offer. On the other hand, an outside-in perspective begins by thinking of worship from the perspective of those you are seeking to reach, those who are not a part of your church, those who are not attending, those you would most hope to reach. Ask yourself, what are their questions? What are their concerns? What are their values? Then, you will better be able to plan your worship out of your own values and traditions, but in a way that will be more responsive to the needs of others. Many people say they want to reach more people, but often never expect to have to make any changes for that to happen. They are not likely to succeed. This is particularly true in seeking to reach younger persons. A survey found that church members want more young people, but at the same time indicated an unwillingness to change their worship or budgets to do so. No wonder we are not more fruitful. The second thing necessary to make worship inviting is giving a much higher priority to worship planning. A major study across all U.S. religious groups found that one thing that distinguishes mainline denominational churches from other churches is that much less time is spent on the planning and preparation for worship services. Pastor Nelson Searcy reminds us, if you don't pay close attention to the details of your worship service, they will atrophy. Some worship planning characteristics of growing churches are that they spend much time in planning for worship long-term and weekly. They prepare extensively for each service, and They regularly evaluate and revise what they are doing. So, our task is neither to copy someone else's way of worshiping, nor to defend everything we're now doing. Instead, it is to examine prayerfully and thoughtfully our worship in a way that connects a growing number of people with God's love through Jesus Christ. Finally, many churches have shown major improvement in attendance by noticing clues in their attendance patterns and acting on the lessons learned. The Lewis Center for Church Leadership encourages churches to track not only weekly and annual attendance, but also your 52-week running average. Using a 52-week running average helps you see how you are doing relative to the entire past year, realizing that this basket of weeks contains both Easter and summertime. Therefore, you can see longer-term patterns that are not apparent by looking at the attendance for any single Sunday or month. The Center has developed a resource, the Congregational Attendance Profile, that enables you to keep attendance records in a way that calculates your 52-week rolling average. Even more importantly, it gives you tools to learn from trends and to improve your average worship attendance. But you may also develop your tracking and chart systems on your own. One revealing use of this data is to put your weekly attendance for the past year on a chart over your church's 52-week running average for each of those Sundays, as shown on this chart. You will notice how this church drew vertical lines to mark certain times and seasons of the year. We can see some patterns that will probably hold true for your church as well. There must be Sundays below average, but often people are surprised by how many there are. That leads to another realization about how important a few Sundays are, especially Easter. Easter accounts for far more of your annual average than you might realize. Many churches' attendance reveals a pattern that can be described as big days, prime seasons, and low times. Big days typically are Easter and Christmas Eve, when attendance tends to be far higher than at any other times. Prime seasons are when attendance tends to be higher than average, Advent and Christmas, January and February, and Lent. Low times are when attendance tends to be lower than average, post-Easter and summer. This particular church noticed their strong Easter attendance, but soon realized how sporadic the attendance was, both before and after Easter. They responded by planning a Lenten focus for the next year. They also utilized some of their special choirs more fully during Lent. As for after Easter, they moved reception of the confirmation class from Easter to the Sunday after Easter. The confirmands got more attention, and there was room for all their family members to sit together. They next noticed not only the summer slump, but how long it lasted. This led to rethinking some of their summer assumptions. Instead of combining two services into one for the summer, they continued both services and showed a 15% increase in summer attendance. Also, a major special focus was planned for the first Sunday after Labor Day to kick off the fall. They were pleased to see the strong Advent and Christmas Eve attendance, but realized that it took many weeks for strong attendance to return. The following year on Christmas Eve, they promoted a special January sermon series. I hope these 3 suggestions will aid you to do what your church was established to do: help more people gather to worship God and leave inspired to serve others. The chances that God will speak to someone through your church are far greater if they are in worship. Careful attention to the people you're seeking to reach, to planning, and to patterns of attendance can bear much fruit for God. May God inform and inspire all your plans.